Hey everybody, it's Marie Haynes here with another episode of Search News You Can Use. We're doing another live YouTube video and we'll see how it goes this week. We're going to talk today about another algorithm update. I think this possibly could be a link-related update, but we'll see. And we'll go over a bunch of things. There's some stuff that I've included just in the paid version of my newsletter that really helps with content creation and just creating good quality websites. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in this episode as well. So we'll get right into the screen sharing here. And we'll talk about what we've seen in the last week in search. If you are watching the Hangout live, feel free to leave a comment, and once I'm finished the update of the newsletter, we'll take a look at the comments. If your site was affected by this algorithm update around May 24th, I'd love for you to comment with your thoughts on what it involves as well. So let's talk about this update. This algorithm update seems to be significant, and I base that on the number of emails that I've received. So anytime that there is a significant algorithm update, I tend to get a lot of emails from people who are looking for help in recovering. And so this time I had a number of emails, and it seems to me that a lot of the sites that are emailing me are sites that have been getting away with link building tactics that are sort of gray hat. And what I mean by that is perhaps something like a widespread widget campaign. So let's say you create a tool and you invite webmasters to embed it in their site, which is not against Google's rules. But if you're embedding back with a link back with a keyword, then that can be construed as a link scheme. And I think it's possible that Google just got better at figuring out that those aren't true votes for your site. I had another site that had been involved in some link building that if you looked at one or two links, you'd say, oh yeah, this could be a natural link. And then when you look at all of the links they get, it's really obvious that these were either paid placements or placements where they've provided content in return to getting a link back. And again, that's not necessarily unnatural, but if you're doing it on a large scale, then it can be. So we'll see what unfolds in the next couple of weeks. I'm still not 100% that this is a link-related update. I do think that there could be a quality component, but there was a lot of chatter. So in the newsletter, we talked about some things that people had said on Twitter, on Barry Schwartz's article on Search Engine Roundtable. These are some of the comments here that people have lost a significant amount of traffic. Some of these, though, are over the last 10 days. So this is not necessarily just for the May 24th update. I did give some examples in the newsletter of these are clients that we've worked with in the past. This one first site is one that we've worked on to improve their URL structure. They had all sorts of scattered topics everywhere, and we helped them to sort of cluster things together and make it so that they are known as the authority on certain topics. And it seems like this is actually helping. They saw a significant boost with an earlier update in May, and then another boost up on May 24th, which is fantastic. And this is reflected in analytics as well, and it's not a seasonal change for them. We had another client here as well that we've been working with for quite a while, helping improve user experience. And this site is starting to see some nice increases. That increase started around May 22nd, and I saw changes anywhere between the 22nd and the 24th. I'm almost wondering if the 22nd was a quality update and the 24th was link related. And like I said, in the weeks to come, hopefully I'll have more information for you on that. There's another site too that we've been working with to improve their how they demonstrate their EAT, their expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. And they've been really up and down with quality updates. Now this site is in a very, very competitive niche. And thankfully with this May 22nd update, they seem to be seeing improvements there as well. I did show this one. The SEMrush chart didn't really show much of a drop, but analytics showed a big drop. And this is one site that I'm suspicious about their links. So, again, I'll keep an eye on these things and let you know whether I think it's a link-related update. all of the algo checkers seem to show that there was something significant going on around this time. So if you were negatively affected by an update around May 22nd to 24th, it's too early to take significant action now. I mean, I always recommend doing a site audit, looking at your site in the eyes of Google's quality raters guidelines, and looking at user experience as well, making sure that you offer the best experience as compared to competitors. And if this is a link-related update, it might be something that is difficult to recover from. I don't think it's something where you can disavow links and see improvement, because you're not going to start receiving the page rank again that Google stopped collecting. So again, I'll keep you updated in the weeks to come to see what comes of this update. But I do think that that was a significant one. Google released Lighthouse 3.0, and Lighthouse is pretty neat for doing site audits. I have to admit that I have to dig into it a little bit more. We sort of have our own system with a whole bunch of other tools that we use for site audits, but I'm going to jump back into looking at Lighthouse again because I'm hearing good stuff about it. We'll talk a little bit about mobile first indexing again. Most of you are probably sick and tired of hearing about this, but Google is starting to send out more emails that look like this, that say that they've enabled mobile first indexing for a particular site. So far, all of the sites that I've received notification for are sites that are I wouldn't necessarily say dated sites, but they're sites that maybe are not 100% sold on updating regularly. They're maybe just a little bit dated. And I think what's happening here is that Google is recognizing a lot of these sites, even though they're mobile friendly, they're essentially the exact same content on mobile as desktop, which is what you want. And so Google's looking to move sites over to mobile first indexing when there is that parity between desktop and mobile content. So if you have not been moved, it means nothing. I would say that fewer than 10% of the sites that I monitor are moved. So if you have not received notification of being moved to mobile first indexing, it doesn't mean that there's a problem. It'd be interesting to see. So far, I haven't heard of any ranking issues once you've been moved to mobile first indexing. Google's goal is to make it so that sites do not suffer in this change. I can't see how it's possible for Google to move every site to mobile first indexing without there being some type of casualties. So we're going to keep an eye on that, especially as Google starts moving some of the sites over that perhaps have a slightly different version on mobile than they do on desktop. We'll talk a little bit more about GDPR. I'm sure you're probably sick and tired of receiving emails from people who have updated their privacy policy. I really think that everybody needs to pay attention to this, even if you're not in the EU. I wrote about, this was an interesting tweet here from Ghostery. They sent out their "We've updated our privacy policy" email and included everybody in the to field, didn't use BCC. So hopefully you're handling GDPR okay. John Mueller tweeted about sites that are completely blocking traffic from Europe. And this really is a silly solution, because if a citizen from Europe is, say, visiting the United States and uses your website, then they're open to GDPR regulations. So blocking all of the EU is probably not the best way to go. There's some information here on how, I wondered about this too, how can a US company, or in my case, a Canadian company, be fined under GDPR? And it is actually possible. I honestly think that it's something that will affect some of the big players, but we'll see. I think all of us need to pay attention. There's a couple of more resources that are in the newsletter that will help you to figure out, what do you need to change in your privacy policy and what else has to change at your business. If you use Google Trends, which most people should be using for content creation and figuring out what to write about, there's been an update. So I haven't dug into this yet, but it looks like there's some cool new stuff there. I was all excited when Chrome started to block auto-playing videos, and apparently this is not happening anymore. There was some issue where it broke the functionality of a bunch of websites. I believe that there were websites that allowed people to play online games, and those stopped working. A bunch of things stopped working when Google started blocking auto-playing videos. So they're working on a new solution. if you do have a site that autoplays videos, I know it's probably a big money generator in terms of ad revenue, but it can really frustrate your users. And it's all over the quality raters guidelines where Google says, if your ads are frustrating, if you're doing things that are annoying users, then that's a sign of low quality. So certainly if you're doing autoplaying video, I would recommend not to do that. More information to snippets and rich results. If you have a website that talks about TV shows and movies and events, there is more schema that you can add now. There was a bug on Google My Business that was causing Google Posts to not show, but it looks like Joy has reported that that is fixed now, so we don't need to worry about that. I'm thrilled to see this, that Google is cracking down now on those phone scammers. I'm sure we all get those phone calls where people say, oh, your Google My Business listing is going to expire and you need to pay us money in order to get it working again, or it's not showing for your top keywords. Those are all spam. Google can occasionally call your business, but if they call your business, they will not robocall. They also will call from Mountain View, California. I think the exception is AdWords. If you have an AdWords rep, sometimes we'll get a call from India or perhaps Pakistan for our AdWords rep. But in terms of just your Google My Business listing, you're not going to get a call from some random blocked number. And so this is something that's good to share with. I've shared it with some of my clients because they'll often email me and say, hey, is this legit? And so now we know that most of those calls that you get are not legit. And hopefully the calls will shut down now that Google is going to start taking legal action in some of that. So let's, we do have some other stuff to talk about here, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen and see, all right, how things are going. Okay, and we actually have some comments today, so thanks for that, guys. And let's see here. Okay, so Gary saw an abnormal traffic drop on Wednesday, May 23rd. Yeah, for one site. And Gary, okay, and so Gary commented that that site has lost featured snippets as well. This is really common on quality hits. If your site suddenly has lost a bunch of featured snippets, then that can mean that you've taken a hit in terms of quality. So it's hard to give, very specific advice, Gary, on what needs to be fixed. Feel free to, if you want to send me the site, marie@mariehaynes.com, I'll take a quick look and give you my thoughts. I'm interested in seeing other sites too that have been negatively affected by this update because it feels like a different kind of update to me. I mean, I know I'm reporting almost every week on different quality updates, and sometimes it's hard to know, what is even worth reporting on. But this one just has a different feel to me. So, I think we need to do some more investigation into this. Let's see here. So a couple of things that I mentioned in the paid version of my newsletter that I think are worthwhile mentioning here as well. I had a couple of tweets from Cyrus Shepard in the newsletter, and everything, if Cyrus tweets something, it's good. He always tweets fantastic stuff. He gave an example of a site that he felt was producing great content. And the site, I believe it was draxe.com, was a whole thing on calories and how to count calories and things like that. And so great about this page is they made really good use of H tags to split up their content. And so what I mean by that is I think probably what they've done is use the Google Suggest results. And so, if you're building a page about green widgets, you can, do Google Suggest to say, what are green widgets? How are green widgets? And see what Google fills in for the rest. And you can see what kind of questions people are asking. Answer the Public is also really good for this as well. But mind you, sometimes Answer the Public will give you almost too much information to go with. But what they've done is they've taken each of these things and made those an H tag. And then underneath the H tag, very concisely explain the answer to that question. this is a really good way to get featured snippets, and it's really, really good in terms of allowing users to skim content, which seems to be something that Google likes. I think users like it as well. So there's a few other things in the newsletter about what this page is doing really well in terms of content, and I would recommend reading that. The other thing that Cyrus tweeted about was a picture from the Quality Raters Guidelines. And if you have been following me for any length of time, you know that we pay very close attention to these Quality Raters Guidelines. There was information, so I don't know how many of you actually know that having good contact information can be a ranking factor. And so it says in the Quality Raters Guidelines, is it possible to contact the owner of this site? And if it's an e-commerce business, are there clear policies on payments, refunds, and exchanges? So if you run an e-commerce website, you need to make it very clear that you have a section for those things. The guidelines say that many websites treat this as, they'll have a page called customer service. And so we would recommend actually creating, if you don't already have a customer service page, create one that talks about your refund policy and whatnot. And the reason for that is that it gives you legitimacy as an actual real life brand that people can trust. And remember that when we're talking about EAT, that T stands for trustworthiness. So if you do not have information on your website about how people can contact you and things like that, then that's something that you should be adding. So speaking of featured snippets, another little tip that we had in the newsletter was for winning featured snippets for product pages. And what one person had suggested was actually creating an FAQ section for each product. Now, I know that's not possible if you have hundreds or thousands or even millions of products, but it's something that you can do for your top grossing products that really can make a big difference. So one of the things that we like to do is say, what are all of the questions people would have when they're talking about buying this particular product? So again, if the if the product was green widgets, you have a frequently asked questions about green widgets, and it can either be H2 tags or maybe H3 tags where you write down the questions. Are green widgets safe? And then you answer that question. Or how do I decide which type of green widget to buy? And maybe that means you make a guide on a buying guide. So anything that you can do to help improve the buying experience for people will make things better. If you think of it from Google's perspective, if there's a particular product that you sell, unless that product is completely unique to you, there are probably many other people selling it. So if Google's seeing that everybody's got essentially the same information on their product pages, there's really nothing for them to say, well, we want to rank this site higher. So I would recommend, and I know it's something that's hard to scale, but I'd recommend giving this a try on a couple of your product pages and then see what happens. See if we can see an increase in ranking for those. Last thing we'll talk about too is in terms of local SEO, a lot of sites are reporting now that some of the reviews are going missing. And that's really frustrating because, if you have reviews, you've obviously worked hard to get those. It seems to be sites that had anonymous reviews, which now you can't leave an anonymous review. But back a couple years ago, you could do that. And I had a couple of lawyers contact me that had seen this. And this kind of makes sense, right? Because, if I had a criminal lawyer, I'm not about to leave a review to tell the whole world that I needed to hire a criminal lawyer. So reviews are tricky to get for lawyers. Not impossible. We see lots of lawyers that get good reviews. But if you've seen a bunch of your reviews disappear, we think that it's the anonymous reviews that have disappeared. I do think that Google is working harder at trying to fight review spam, and maybe this is one of the steps to take about that. But unfortunately, I think if you have lost a bunch of reviews, it may not be possible to get those back. So I think that's all that we have. I want to thank you guys who joined us live. I know a lot of you will be watching this afterwards. Certainly open to suggestions. If you're not aware of this, we actually have a podcast now, which is a completely different soundtrack to this video. We've made it so that if you're not actually watching video, you can still get good value from it. So if you search my name or search news, you can use either on iTunes or Google Play Music, you'll be able to find that podcast. And that's something weekly. The episodes are probably about 15 or 20 minutes long, and they just keep you updated with everything you need to know for search. If you want to reach me, you can reach me at marie@mariehaynes.com. And especially if you've been affected by the May 22nd to 24th updates, I'd love to hear from you. And that's all we have for this week, guys. So I hope that rankings keep continuing on an upward trend for you. Have a great day.